welcome to Equality Florida's Trans Awareness Week. This is a limited series. Today's conversation will be highlighting non-binary communities and leaders. So we're here today, to educate a little bit more on the non-binary experience. So today's conversation will be centering the non-binary community, as it is a form of expression that can embody so many different ways, as it's very customizable to each person. So my name is Fidel Gomez. I use they, she pronouns, and I am a community organizer here in the Central Florida area. And today we are joined by some lovely people. So feel free, whoever wants to go first, introduce yourself.
I'm Jes Martinez-Hunt. I use they, them pronouns, and I live here in Orlando, Florida, and work in trans justice with an organization called and I also do conflict engagement work nationally.
Yes, I am Kassanndra Santiago, she, they. I am a Afro-Caribbean and Mexican biracial individual. I am the co-executive director of development for Las Samias, and very happy to appear.
Hi everyone, my name is Nino Franklin and my pronouns are they, he. I identify as a Black, non-binary, trans-masculine individual. I'm from Orlando, Florida, Orange County Public Schools, and I love Florida so much. I went to the University of Florida and got my bachelor's in sociology, and then came back to Central Florida and got my master's in medical sociology. Currently, I'm a case manager at Zebra Youth, and I'm also the founder of Transmasculando here.
Wow. I am so impressed with the lineup that we have today. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation with you all. So my first question for each of us is, how has gender dysphoria appeared during your experience as a non-binary person?
Well, I'll start.
Okay, you go first.
I feel like I didn't realize that I was non-binary for a long time. I didn't realize that the phases of my gender fluidity that I was experiencing was dysphoria, and it was playing out in a way that I didn't have the language to understand, from being very masculine to being very butchy to being ultra femme, that I did not realize that I was just a non-binary individual. Mm. And even though, I had been through two traumatic events. I am a attempted homicide survivor. And also I survived a terminal leaning sickness. And in that last one, where I pretty much was going through accepting death and just sitting with that, I realized kind of like, you look at your life flashes before your eyes, and you kind of realize, oh, that's what that was, and I started getting real. When you're experiencing death or when you're accepting death, you get really honest with yourself really quickly, So.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad you're still here. What about you, Nina?
And then for me, I feel like my dysphoria has really had phases, but starting with puberty and being an assigned female at birth person, I didn't like growing breasts, and then I would always have on my jacket. I would always cover up, and then once I figured out sports bras, I always kept that on. Even with my voice, I know we're going to talk about euphoria later, but initially, as I was coming into my non-binary identity and not getting they or he, but just getting clocked right at, hearing my voice, my light girl voice, that was really dysphoric for me. And, as my dysphoria evolves, even going to the doctor, and there was a point in time I turned 21 and I had to go get a pap smear, and that was just really nerve-wracking. And I love how there are many centers around trying to have a gender-neutral name for like the Venus Center, and just having it so no matter how you identify, you can go get that gender-affirming care and whatever that looks like, whether it's a mammogram, or I hope I still don't have my breasts by then, but getting a mammogram when you're 40. But different things like that can be nerve-wracking. Even having a menstrual cycle when you don't want one.
Mm. What about you, Jes?
Yeah, I think I also didn't realize I was non-binary for a long time. I came out pretty late. And it was like one of those looking back, oh, these were all the dysphoric moments. Oh, this is where I thought I was broken. And now finding a sense of belonging has allowed me to kind of reshape a lot of those. I didn't come out as trans until I was in my 40s almost, late 30s, early 40s. And I had come out as queer and then found out I had ADHD and autism. And then, it's just like couple more letters to add. But it was watching my daughter come out that helped me. And so, looking back, like realizing when I remember mourning when I got my first period, like I didn't understand what friends, like I remember reading Judy Blume, because I'm old. I remember reading Judy Blume and they Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret? And all the girls were all excited and having period parties and, and I was just like, oh, why? No. Oh my God, this is terrible. I was wearing white shorts at Disney. I mean, it's just the most horrible thing. And then my breasts started growing and then they just didn't stop. And I had breast reduction surgery when I was in my 20s because they were so large and I wanted to go like really small. But I wanted to breastfeed because I thought that these are the things I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a parent. I'm supposed to do these things, right? And if I do those right, then I won't be broken anymore, which was, all that dysphoria. And I asked the doctor, I wanted to be smaller, and he left me, when I woke up, he said, I left you a little larger because of proportions. And I remember just being like, I let go of being in touch with my body at that point. I was like 20, 21, and it was not my body anymore. It was sciences, it was the world's, it was everybody else's. It was do whatever you want to it doesn't matter, because it's not mine. And so, that dysphoria makes you disconnected with yourself.
Absolutely. I completely relate to that. Growing up like AMAB, right? I, grew up in a really rigid, immigrant household. And my dad really uplifted the theory of machismo and men need to be this and men need to be strong. And, I'm not going to lie. Like, I think I did get, pretty strong in my era, sometimes I still forget that I'm not that strong anymore, but definitely that experience of just having that like realization of like, oh, I'm not enjoying my life completely. I'm not expressing myself the way that I want. I've always been a creative person. And so like, for me, just being able to like experiment with clothing or, being able to, even apply a little bit of makeup on, when my family wasn't home, like, just doing things like that. And then just being really saddened at the fact that like, oh, I got to wash it off now. Oh, with my dad's about to be home. I need to be doing heavy lifting stuff, and as grateful as I am of that experience, I didn't start kind of discovering myself until probably like my later 20s, like mid to late 20s. And I'm 33 now. And so like it's been a process now over the last few years of, of what I thought that I knew, right? And then now it's like even more of like, ooh, I really was still living with so much dysphoria and not even realizing it and masking it and hiding it and whatever. And so, I think it's unfortunate that we have to deal with that. But I think that kind of gets us into now, right? Like what euphoria can look like, right? And how little things that happen or kind of like what you were mentioning with like, somebody clocking you or whatever, right? And then having that opposite effect of like, oh, they called me ma'am, or they called me like, they or whatever. And like being accepted when I'm saying that in a room, What about you all? I would love to hear, like what was like a first euphoric experience that you had?
Honestly, I would say, before, I wasn't gonna start hormone replacement therapy until I moved to a different state because I felt like I couldn't around my family. And then I found community and chosen family, and I didn't know what Transmasc Orlando would come to, but having that community and having the Telegram where I could be like, hey guys, how do I start tea? Or where do I get a binder? Or where do I get this packer? Like, what are the websites for us, by us? And then one of my buddies in the group chat, he was like, hey, schedule an appointment here. They're doing first-time patients. And it really was the most awesome thing. And from there, I got to talk to a doctor. I got to get my shot. And that first shot, I mean, it just really meant the world to me. And then it hit me like a bus. I mean, over the course of time, like, I'm getting muscles. I have little peach fuzz. Going through that puberty that I wanted to have is very euphoric. But yeah, that's about for me right now.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
You know, I think my euphoria kind of happens with my spirituality. I've accepted a lot of what we've talked about as well, as just being like this soul in a body, and just accepting that I don't have to perform any gender. I don't have to perform femininity. I don't have to perform masculinity. Gender is fluid. And so for me, you know, I wake up and dress how I want to dress, and I don't conform to any non-binary. Like, today I look like this, but don't be fooled, there's a buzz cut under this wig. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I can, that liberation, it's not so much the euphoria of like what I present as, it's my autonomy that allows me to have euphoria.
Ooh. Like you saying that last piece, because like, yes, like I very much feel, I don't know if you all like watch American Dad, right? But like Roger, like for me, that character is very much like, you know, and the way that they are a new, I wouldn't say I'm putting on a persona, but that I am experimenting with what I could do, right? And there's been so many moments where, you know, I have tried on an outfit that I was like, oh, I would never wear that. And I tried it on. I'm like, okay, we're gonna serve this today. Like, this is the vibe. This is the look. And yeah, but what about you?
Yeah, I think it's that like when I gave up on gender almost, when I found gender queer, when I realized that I could not care, then it like fell into place, and I started looking in the mirror and kind of seeing myself. And my spouse and I joke all the time, like, you can wear whatever you want now, you're queer. And it's when you're non-binary, trans, queer, like you can put on the weirdest of outfits and you look amazing. And it's because we have this internal connection with ourselves. We have the joy in our being again. And it just emanates out through our clothing, through our choices, through our just. So yeah, I think my euphoric moments are moments like this when I'm with other trans people and we're talking about it, and we have such similar stories with such diverse backgrounds, and we can all like share this experience, and it's so amazing to move into that belonging space.
Honestly, yes. I for me, for example, before getting into community organizing and, you know, helping people to that capacity, I was a hair and makeup artist, and I was, you know, again, always just kind of like experimenting, right? I would, you know, do people's makeup for fashion shows and weddings and all of that, and you really get to experiment, right? And I feel like that gave me permission. And so like the journey, I can think back on like certain moments now of like the last, like, you know, maybe 10 years of like, I think I was figuring it out like then, or like when I tried this, I felt the most like what I wanted to be or present myself as. And like even now, right? Like I don't look the same as I looked 2 years ago. You know, I love and also hate like social media things sometimes where they're like, here's your memory from a few years ago. Cause I'm like, ooh, I thought I looked good that day. That stubble was real. Wow. Okay. You know, like there's little moments of like when you're reflecting back of like, I can categorize, I feel like almost like mini eras of like euphoria that I've had. And now sitting in all of the spaces that I get to be in today of like, you know, I get to show up the way that I am feeling that day, and not being apologetic that, you know, sometimes like with mental health, right? Like that is a very big factor when it comes to our identity, and like trying to really be able to make sure that we're staying balanced, right? And that we're staying, you know, like in our in our best self, right? But also giving yourself permission to feel like, okay, today's not their best day, right? And I don't feel obligated I have to present a certain way when I leave the house today. I'm feeling like ass. I'm gonna look however the hell I want today. You know, like, so yeah.
I want to add on to that.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that you guys brought up a soul and a body, autonomy, and evolutions of euphoria. Because at all points in my life, I did not feel like myself, but I realized that I had autonomy to do more with myself and my expression. I believe it or not, back in high school, I was a cheerleader, I was a flyer, and I loved every bit of it. I loved getting my nails done, I loved getting a perm. After a while, I didn't, and I felt like, because like, I know someone mentioned earlier how in the Black household, okay, you can be gay, but you can't be trans. Like, don't do all that extra stuff, you know. This is just enough, it's mild. And then it took me, like, going off to college, I felt so free. I felt like I could do what I wanted, and they didn't have to see. I cut my hair off, like I went one all around, and you know I had to like kind of warm my parents up to that. But like those different versions and those different feelings of evolution, and I realized I could do whatever I want. And I was also a sociology major, and I loved learning about like social constructs because I'm non-binary to the core, like they, them. I like look at mass. I love gender affirming care. You can do whatever you like no one's journey looks the same way. And once I realized that, it was just euphoric. Like, I thought you had to be, if you're on hormones, you had to be a trans man, you had to say he, him. I just couldn't understand that. But once I saw social media and how everyone else in the community presents and chosen family, like, made me believe I could do it my way and not be judged.
Yeah, it was Scott Mick on RuPaul's Drag Race that helped me realize, oh, you can be trans man or trans and still like to get drunk. Oh, there's a whole other area. What? It really opened up my whole world.
Yeah. And even talking about like chosen family and like community at large, like when I was settling into like my truth, you know, I had to have conversations with other people, and you know, I had and I'll give a shout out to Andy Centino from my trans network, because, you know, me and him were out having drinks after an event. And it was one of the first times that after my second facing with death, that I was able to speak to somebody and be really honest and like radically honest and not be judged. And I remember that, I apologize. I remember, you know, him telling me like, because I was like, you know, I've been experiencing these things, you know, deep inside, you know, I've always, you know, like dressed butch, or, you know, I've always went back to that. And, you know, I wonder like, is there a chance that I may be transmasculine? And I remember him being like, that we had a good chuckle, but we also had a good moment of like, you know, assessing my life in its entirety, and him looking at me and being like, just, you know, be fluid, be open. And if you end up a trans man at 60, that like you will always be loved and you'll always be appreciated. And it was the first time somebody could look at me and really honor and respect that. I'm like, I don't know what I am. And even now, that confidence to be accepted and to be loved in my confusion was euphoric, and it was beautiful, because that's what the community should do. They should take you at face value and be like, you're on a journey and you don't know where you're going to be. And this might be it now, but it's going to change, and it's going to change. And that's perhaps why the non-binary works so well for you, because maybe you're happy in fluidity. Maybe one day you won't be, you know, but that support from him and from others, I mean, it really changed the trajectory of how I identify, you know?
I completely relate to that. I feel like for me, I was contemplating for a while, right, on especially with everything that was going on here with our access to gender affirming care, right, and already being in spaces where I'm supporting people trying to get that access and seeing that some of the clinics, stopped providing HRT, especially here in Central Florida. And then even just like the thought of like, well, what if like, I know I want to do it. I know I want to start it, but what if by the time I finally decide, it's like, it's too late, right? Like, what if it's not even an option for me, And so instead of just like one day being like, I'm this now, I still gave myself permission to be like, well, I might have to wait a while until I see, the doctor for the first time, or to get my blood work and all of that, or, to even see results of anything, or your face slowly changing, or any of that, like really, really being like, okay, like I'm accepting that journey, and I'm not going to pressure myself to look a certain way this quickly, right? Or to be a certain way, or, to be almost discredited sometimes when there are people that have been living their trans experience for a while, and them being like, oh, you're this, okay, sure, but let me figure that out, don't just tell me, let me, sit in that and simmer in that. And I think that, with everyone's experiences that you all are sharing right now, like there's bits and pieces of that, right? That like the society norm of like what non-binary should look like, right? Or especially how, some of opposing, administrative thought, whatever, right? Like to depict us as, we need blue hair and work at Starbucks, and we have to look like this. It doesn't even have to be that. We have permission to do whatever, right?
I think people get really excited to tell you what you. Yeah, I know. People get very excited to tell you what you are, what you should look like, and how you should be. And it's quite unfortunate that even in community, they do quite the opposite in helping you. They kind of label you when that's not their place. I think it's a level of elitism that we have in the community as well. Like people want to tell you what they see. Like they can look at you and be like, oh, you're a woman. And it's like, you're not even respecting that I've said I'm non-binary several times. Yeah. That, if I rip off this wig, you're about to see the freshest buzz cut. Like we do it to ourselves. We hurt ourselves and our own communities. And it's really something that is worth saying, that the elitism and that level of we're going to either clock each other or tell each other what we see for ourselves is just undermining the autonomy in my own journey that I have, and that I have to face alone, Yeah. And then I invite you into as my chosen family or community to have.
That's very true, because I feel like sometimes when we're trying to do so much, right, of like trying to help people out or being a part of different spaces, right, like there is that of like people sometimes will not be as supportive because you're not the exact example of what they are looking for, or whatever. But I feel like that also kind of takes into the next bit of like what did that aha moment look like for all of us, like or I guess maybe like your first one, or one that you feel compelled to really set you on this journey.
I think, and I don't know if it's a non-binary thing where we have just a bunch of them. We just really love playing in the liminal space, right? But my dad passed away right after my twins were born. So he was in his 50s, and it's kind of struck me. And he lived in Michigan, so I didn't really get to know him as well as I wanted to. And it struck me, this is the life. This is it. This is the life you get. I had lost friends early, I'd lost grandparents early, but for some reason, this one just kind of, maybe it was having the kids, like, I don't know, I was in this like postpartum haze of, oh, this is it. Is this the life? Is this the legacy I want to leave? Like, this is the like living is a legacy. The memories I have of my dad are the life that we lived together. So when I started thinking about that, for me, I wasn't living the life that I wanted. And then as my daughter grew up, she was assigned male at birth, and she just kind of came into herself. And when she was younger, people would ask her, "Are you a boy or a girl?" She'd be like, "Atticus, like, what's wrong with you?" And I just saw her just have this joy in being herself and just a person in the world, and supported and loved for whoever she was. And I was like, "Oh, man, I wish I had that." And I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, "You can, you can right now, you can." And it just shifted, and I realized I don't know who I am. And kind of peeling back, I've been finding who I have been inside, and been able to look back at my childhood stories and be like, "Oh yeah, that was my gay child self. That was my trans baby self." Like, I can see all these things now. And so it's like kind of a continue every day when I wake up and I'm able to be who I want to be in this world is my aha moment.
I love that. And it's so true. What about you all?
Yeah, I agree. Being non-binary sure has its evolutions and stages. Because originally I identified as a stud woman, like masculine presenting. But when I went to college and I thought I would find more studs, more masked women, I realized that when we would talk about things, whether that was sexually or things we wanted to do to our body or future plans for ourselves regarding gender identity, we had completely separate thoughts. You know, I wanted to be called something different. I had a preferred name. I wanted to do top surgery. I even having like bedroom talk, and some people don't use straps and like, "Oh, you want to be a man," just having that. And I was like, I didn't feel stud enough, but that was like the only people I was around. So then when I got to Orlando, I was just like, something's different. You know, I want to go on hormones. I want to have bottom growth. I wanted all these different things that didn't align, and I was just like, I don't feel that I identify as a stud, as a woman who presents mass but still wants to be called she, her. And then, like, secondly, I had took a trip to California with my family, and everybody was calling me he, him. And, like, getting out of my own bubble, I was like, oh, they see the vision. They asked me my pronouns. Like, that was just, like, the nicest feeling ever. And my parents are trying to correct, because they've come a long way, but they're like, no, she, her. And I'll be like, no, let them call me him. Like, it felt really nice and, like, amazing. So, like, going back to Florida, I was like, I'm non-binary. But then the trans part came along because, like, recognizing that I did want to be on gender affirming care, I did want to take hormones. Like, that was its own thing, and finding community really helped. And then, like, another, like, really big aha is losing other trans mass in the community. We had someone pass away tragically, and, you know, I always say to myself, I don't want my top surgery to be my Y incision when I pass away. I want to be able to get top surgery while I'm alive and just keep living. Even when he passed away, more people put towards, you know, the passing than when he was alive and was doing a fund for his gender affirming care. And I didn't want it to look like that. And it just makes me want to uplift those in the community even more. Like, I love having events where, like, you can, like, anyone, like, you have your top surgery, you can wear your scars out. You have a binder, you have tape. Like, I just love uplifting the community. And seeing community also gives me euphoria within itself. Seeing those happy, start HRT for the first time, even, like, as you were saying, like, being able to have the conversation with Andy and someone really hearing you and like, oh, you're going to call me this preferred name? Oh, you do those pronouns? Yeah, no problem. Like, I just really love hearing people's authentic self, and it may be their first time expressing it, but I think it's beautiful.
So I think similar to, like, with us being non-binary, the ahas come in waves. I think I've been queer since high school. I'm very comfortable with speaking about my near-death experiences. So with the attempted homicide that I dealt with, it kind of, you know, I think we spoke about it earlier, where you don't come back the same. You know, that person is very gone. And, you know, my gender identity was all over the place. Like, I was kind of like Madonna for, like, just like the gender spectrum, like, but it was always leaning very masculine. And it wasn't until, I went in between masculine and femme, and then I ended up, getting leaning terminal and surviving that. But, and you were there where I was about to sign the papers to die. Like, I was on my deathbed, and, just being really radically honest, looking back at my whole life, and then also accepting what it was the entire time, the language, being a community leader, helping everybody else get resources, this, that, and the third, and realizing your community too, Cass, and you're not getting anything.
Mm.
You're not getting any resources. You're not getting any help. You don't even help yourself, you know? And so having that moment of acceptance where I just allowed myself to accept the terminology, but I did not come out as being non-binary until much later, where I felt safer and I knew I had the support. But you know, on that deathbed, I felt like I was like, yeah, I had that aha moment. I knew what I was, and you know, knowing what type of research I would look into and accepting what it all was. And like you said, it shouldn't take your deathbed. It shouldn't take your death for anyone to realize anything, or for yourself to have realized that you wasted your life being, you know, what is it? Subscribing to the binary. You know, just because clocking into femininity or clocking in as a butch lesbian, just because that felt right or normal, you know, and challenging the status quo, you know, pushing back on the conformity that we have in the gender spectrum. You know, and being strong, especially as all of us being leaders, you know, being strong for the community and being a role model, and also understanding that we are community and we need to do that for each other.
I could have had like five different ways this conversation could go from just what you said, and I you know, I'm happy that you're still here. You know, I'm happy that all of us are still here. But you know, definitely like those moments can be really interesting for us, like accepting, or like what does that look like for myself, kind of like how I mentioned I was, you know, doing hair and makeup on other people, and I would experiment on myself every now and then, and I still offer them sometimes, but like essentially gender affirming services, right? A lot of times I would get people that, you know, they wouldn't feel comfortable coming to the salon to be like, I've always wanted to see what this and like long hair looks like, or what I look like with makeup on. Like, can you, you know, and I had a client that was a much older person, and they hired me to come to their house to perform the services. And, you know, I came in thinking like, all right, like just a normal everyday look or whatever, you know, and they open the door, you know, and they're like, oh, like I was expecting the typical blue hair, you know, whatever that analogy, right? And they were just like, no, like you look good, like, oh my God, like make me look like you know. And I was like, okay, you know, and as you're painting and talking to them and getting to know a little bit more about their life, you know, it really made me sad to realize like this is the only moment that they feel euphoria. As an older person on, you know, their fixed income and whatever, and I don't know what they were doing later that night, but that's none of my business, you know. But, you know, they were wanting to get ready to feel like a version of themselves that, you know, to them felt beautiful. And I kind of was like, you know, that similar feeling of like, I don't want to be like in my 60s finally being like, okay, I'm ready, you know. Nothing wrong with you discovering that in your 60s, like whatever, but you know, hey. But you know, I think for me it was just like I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live hiding bits and pieces of myself, or not feeling fully satisfied with what I'm, you know, producing for myself, you know, and showing up the way that I want. With that, you know, experience, I know for me that kind of was like really altering on like, all right, like where I belong and what do I want to do, and seeing a lot of my clients at the time kind of see like the slow experimentations getting more bold, and like, okay, what are you wearing? But I love this, you know, or seeing, you know, getting people ready and doing a style that I'm like, I wish I can wear that. Like, damn, you know, like I grew up with sisters. And so for me, I would always see them I had one that was like the makeup queen, and the other one was total tomboy, but she would always, like, the fashion was real, you know? And I would always like look at them and be like, "Ugh, I wish I could wear that. Like, damn, I gotta put on this, you know, janky polo or whatever." So I think in my era of where I'm at now, I'm like, I'm gonna try on all the things, even if it looks good or not, because hey, like, why not? For me, I think having that realization was like how I knew that I wanted to live my life, you know, after that aha switch happened.
I took a trip with a friend to get gender affirming like care to help with her surgery for her aftercare. And you know, she's such a strong individual. She chose herself, got something done that she wanted to get done, picked the people around her that were going to help her. And then on top of that, you know, the euphoria, the secondhand euphoria of her happiness and her excitement, because I went on that trip shortly after just recovering from my own sickness, went to go help take care of her. And, you know, I was never talking about what was going on in my mind. Everything was just like, I need to be locked in, sober, caregiving, all the stuff. And, you know, it was one of those things once again where I was like, I must be a glutton for punishment because I love taking care of people. And also that, you know, in the middle of the night, I'm having these thoughts of like, I'm having that secondhand euphoria of not only that I'm so happy for her, but I'm also like, that's what I want to feel like. Like, she is an inspiration of exactly what I want to feel like. And maybe I haven't had it yet, and I don't know what that looks like, but that's the journey. But I knew in that instant that I was doubling down on what I already accepted like 2 months ago, you know?
I hadn't already accepted it, but seeing my daughter as she got older, just continually just being herself and wearing the trans flag as a cape and being supported by friends and being able to stand up for herself and taking her to Tallahassee and, you know, really seeing other trans people in those relationships and seeing that vulnerable euphoria that we can have and that vulnerable authenticity that we really have when we sit down with each other helped me to be like, any other life is a shadow life. How can I exist? And you can't go back. Once you know, like, for me, I kept trying to like hide it, you know, maybe it's easier if I don't kind of thing, but it's not. Once you start living authentically, it just becomes like breathing and you just are like, how is anybody else not doing this?
Because people are lying to themselves
every day.
Nino, what about you?
And then for me, I would honestly say getting over the hump of starting my gender affirming care, like that was like the scariest part. And once I had my first shot, I was like, can't go back. I've already been through the hardest part, and just getting to see all of the changes, like it's just been very euphoric, and getting to see physically how my soul feels inside. Like you can explain it to someone all day. Like there are still some things I feel inside that I hope to see physically one day. But like getting to see it bit by bit, and I've never felt that like before this. Like once you feel something good, it's hard to let it go. And I'm gonna keep chasing that euphoria.
I love that. I think for me it was I would say once I started getting more active and helping out the community and seeing so many different types of people, you know, I think like there's such like a joy, you get almost like plugged, like powerful, I guess, like when you're around some of those people. Like I'm so inspired looking at the youth right now. I'm so jealous because I wish I had some of the, you know, kind of like the confidence, but also just like the ability to know that like I'm gonna do what I want and I'm gonna explain it like this and this and this and get it or don't, you know, like that attitude. And then also like spending time with like elders, you know. I had an opportunity last year that rest in peace, Miss Major. I got to go to her house and spend time with her on her couch and hang out and just like to feel that power of like, I went through this, and I never let that stop me. You know, there were bits and pieces that she picked up throughout her life that at this sanctuary that she created, like there's like a merry-go-round in the back, right? And like, that's a whole backstory, but you know, she really wanted to pay homage to the people that, you know, that would go to the park with her when they weren't on the street working at night, you know, and they would just, their moment of joy was sitting at a park in New York, sitting on a merry-go-round. And so for her to have that in her backyard, like, to me, I was like, I love that, you know, like, I want to look back on my life and know there was moments that I still take with me, you know? So yeah, so I think that's so like inspiring, hearing how different but similar our experiences are, you know? We're kind of getting close to the end of this. So I want to know, is there anything that you all would say to somebody that is watching this today, that maybe like has heard what non-binary is, or maybe they're questioning, you know, is there anything that you would say to them?
Whoever you are, there is room for you.
I think for me, there are no right first steps, but you're not going to make everybody happy. You're always going to piss somebody off. So just live your life.
Mm.
And I would say for me is to be patient, be unapologetically real with yourself, and, you know, don't hold back. It takes time. It's going to be a journey, and get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Because one day you'll be comfortable and uncomfortable, and you wish that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. You took what I was about to say. I'm gonna say, don't ever be too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know, be willing to be open. Be, you know, comfortable, I guess, in knowing that whatever's happening now is not gonna be the same thing in a couple months. The person that you're with now may or may not be the same person that they were, you know, initially, whatever, right? Like, there's so many changes in life that you have to just be okay with. But like, be open to that, you know, being open to those changes is what I would say. So any last final comments before we wrap up today?
Just kindness. Like, as queer folks, we are navigating so much trauma. We don't know what any of us are going through. Like, just be kind. Like, be kinder, and just find it in your heart to be a little more compassionate. I think everybody's so quick to have like a trigger finger. And it's just one of those things where, you know, just meet people with compassion, meet people with kindness. And honestly, if I can't do either of those things, I'm really just going to stay home. Like, that's it.
I think for those of us whose existence is resistance, it's important to remember that our self-care needs to feel indulgent. If we do not feel like we are spoiling ourselves, we are not taking care of ourselves.
That's beautiful.
I completely agree with that. Sorry, but I recently went back to the nail salon after like taking a break, and I didn't realize that like I needed that moment to be like, look at me feeling like, you know, like fishy again. What about you, Nino?
Oh, I did have something.
Self-care,
Self-care.
self-care.
Yeah, self-care in times like this. You know, please pour into self-care, and especially during times like this, don't forget to continue to educate yourself, you know, pour yourself into community and have those healthy and uncomfortable conversations. Like, we're no better than them if we pit each other against each other. So just know that you do have someone. There is a community for you, and even if one doesn't float your boat, there is one. Like, as you said, there is space for you somewhere.
Yeah, there's so many pockets in this community. If you're not happy, just go where you fit.
Yep.
Yep. Well, speaking on that, could you tell us where we can find each and every single one of you if we were to look you up online?
All right, so Transmask Orlando does have a Facebook and Instagram account. So it's Transmask Orlando on Instagram, and there's a Facebook page as well. And then my main account on Instagram is N.S. Franklin. Yep. And that's where you find me at. You can also see there's Internal Simone. I love the arts. I'm a lover of the arts. I also DJ and do photography, a lot of event queer photography. So just check me out.
So I do too many things. But you can find me at Las Semillas in West Orlando. I have provided all the socials, so I hope they put them somewhere on the screen. But you can find me with Las Semillas. Again, I am their co-executive director of development for their programming. I also am the president of Somos Loud. I also am the founder for My Pine Hills and for LGBTQ plus Florida. And I also write for the paper for the Midtown Press for West Orlando, but West Central Florida, as well as being just like a co-op writer, freelance. So you're going to find me everywhere.
Love that. What about you, Jes?
My organization, Trans And, it's with the ampersand. We have a website, Trans And Online. You have to spell out and for that one. We also have Instagram and Facebook. And I work at the Maitland Public Library. Shout out to libraries. And I'm on the path to be a minister with the Unitarian Universalist Association, and I do conflict resilience work with them.
Wow. Okay. Well, me.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at officialfidelg, where I share a lot of content where it's just related, honestly, uplifting a lot of the work that a lot of people are doing now, but also kind of providing some education. You could also find me through the Hope Community Center, HCC Apopka on Instagram, and as well, I'm the director of outreach for Somos Loud Central Florida, so you could find us at SomosLoud_CFL.
And shout out Zebra Youth. I am a case manager there. If you know any youth 13 to 24 that are in need of case management services, housing, we even have a drop-in center. Please come and get a membership. But yeah, shout out at Zebra_youth on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. It really, for me, was so, invigorating hearing all of your different stories. Even if I, have worked with some of you all before in different spaces, it's nice to have, a conversation about our experiences and how they can be similar and different. So thank you so much for tuning in. And check out the rest of the series for Trans Awareness Week here on Equality Florida's Instagram, and also follow Equality Florida. And thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.